thank you so much for taking the time. Nice to meet you. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's been a pretty long day for me actually, because I think Consensys is having an offsite here, and
Oh,
there's been several events as well you've seen on Twitter. So lots of things happening. Token's been very exciting. Also, a lot of things happening in the AI x crypto space, which I'd love
right.
to talk about. But
Absolutely.
overall, very exciting. I'm also based here, so
Oh,
it's very
wonderful.
convenient for me. For
Yeah,
me.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so since morning we had, a couple of fireside chats. We first talked about DeFi applications. We spent some time talking about AI. And I guess,
Makes
given
sense.
your expertise, we're hoping to, drill down a bit on the infra side of the layer. So before we get started, maybe you can give a quick intro about your
Sure,
background.
sure, sure, sure. So I'm currently senior director of engineering at Consensys, but before and just actually earlier this year, I was the founder as well as CTO of Web3 Off. So we got acquired. It's public news. We got acquired by Consensys and mostly working closely with MetaMask to bring seeders onboarding to their ecosystem. So right now, if you're on MetaMask, you can use social logins to sign up and create an account. And this also works on mobile, and that's a really important unlock for onboarding, because for users, the seed phrase thing is just a lot of work, right? So social logins, given how far it's come and how secure it is based on our tech, I think is a much better option for onboarding. So I used to work on that and also did quite a few AI things related to primarily security, so ZK, and Web3 off. Um, and over the last 2 months, 2 to 3 months really, ERC 8004 has gotten really, really popular. So that was primarily spearheaded by Marco, also from Consensys, as well as Davide from Ethereum Foundation. And for those who are not familiar with this spec, the reason it came about is because nowadays there are lots of AI agents.
Right.
And AI agents have lots of different capabilities. And Google has published a standard called A2A that allows an agent to kind of advertise what it can do,
Right.
right? So if an agent, you follow the A2A spec, you have this JSON file that tells people what your capabilities, what you can do, and amongst other things. So that works as an interface, but it doesn't solve two major problems. So one of those problems is discoverability, right? So you have this interface, but where do I find everybody, right? If I'm trying to use the agent, where do I find them? And the second thing is trust, right?
Okay.
You may be discoverable, but are you trustworthy, right? Is this agent gonna, spam me, right? Or maybe use my funds in an inappropriate way? So that's what 8004 sets out to solve, and that's also what I'm working on with Marco and David and the rest of the EF team at DAI doing. Yeah.
No, I can clearly see your excitement because in your intro you talked more about 8004
Yes,
than
yes,
your
yes.
background itself.
I
So I can
think
clearly see your enthusiasm
it's
around the new
moving
standard
so
and
quickly. Like just over the last 2 weeks, we had a community call with like almost 200 people joining. Lots
right.
of builders are very excited about it, and I think it solves a real problem, which is just as an agent, I want people to use it, but there's no clear way to advertise it right now.
Got
Yeah.
it. Wonderful. No, so just turning back, you mentioned first of all, congratulations on
Thank you, thank you.
Web3
Took a
Auth
long
being
time,
acquired
yes.
by Consensys.
Particle network guys, I think he's left, but he probably we're very similar. We're competitors in a
Oh,
way, yeah.
okay.
So very
Yeah.
interesting to see how they've come so far as well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you spent more than half a decade building Web3 Auth, and as if I'm not wrong,
Close
to
to
60.
six,
Yeah,
7, 2018. So about seven
yeah.
years, about 7 years, yeah.
Yeah, and I read that your mission was to make digital ownership and digital identity accessible to everyone. Now, with the
Yes.
Consensys acquisition and MetaMask distribution, I'm sure
Yes.
that helps a lot.
Yes.
But from that vantage point of view, we're curious to know your thoughts as to to what extent that problem has been solved for making digital ownership and identity accessible to everyone. And I know we will come to the agent's identity and ownership
Yes,
as
yes,
well,
yes.
but first
I
from a
would love to
user
talk about
perspective.
that. It's all relative, right? So if I were to compare it to how things were in 2017, I think the problem is like 99% solved, right?
Okay.
In 2017, you could only do things via MetaMask. There was
Right.
no other option. So today we take things like embedded wallets, right?
Right.
Social login for granted, right? But back then, there was no other option. Oh, I think there was another option. It was my Ether wallet. Yeah,
Okay.
that
Yeah.
was the only other option. And And basically, it was very inconvenient for the end user to use. Signing up and onboarding took minutes, which is wild, right? And nowadays, if it takes even 20 seconds, you're a bit annoyed. So from then, I think lots of competitors came about. So the ones they see today, like Particle Network, who was Dynamic, right, Privy, I think they started a bit later. But early on, there were other competitors too. I think Bitski was one of them,
Okay.
which there was Portis, there was Fortmatic, which became Magic, right? So lots of these companies started, some of them shut down, but at the end of the day, we all kind of centered around the same few solutions, which was using social login. And the reason for that is not by chance. So the reason for that is social logins are the way to secure your identity in Web2, right? So why rebuild the wheel when you have a flow that works, has been, it's not secure by design, but it's secure through evolution. Over the years, lots of people got hacked, right? People used to put passwords on post-it notes on the monitor, right?
Yeah.
And then those things were they're outdated, and now use things like 2FA, biometrics. So social login as a spec and as a way to identify yourself on the internet has evolved to become more and more secure. And a lot of the work has been done, the groundwork has been laid. So a lot of these companies, and including Web3 Off,
Yeah.
basically copied these flows because
Okay.
we knew that they work and that they were secure. So we all ended up going the same direction, which is making it more seamless and more like Web2 logins. And I think today, if you think of onboarding flow, pretty much that piece of the puzzle is solved, which is how to identify and secure your key.
Right.
But there are other problems in blockchains, things like your initial amount of funding, right? Where do you get it
Right.
from? So people use credit cards, some people use other options like bank transfer, some people do it through exchange. I think that part has also largely been solved, not in the cheapest way. So
Okay.
there is some level where it's still kind of costly to the end user. But if you just want to make a quick transaction, maybe to buy an NFT, right? You can do it really quickly today.
Got it. So the user onboarding, quite a lot of these challenges, as you mentioned, the
Yes.
identity onboarding, the wallet creation, or the social logins, as well as the on-ramping has been solved to a certain degree.
I
You would
think
say to a
so. I think so. Like
yeah,
99%, yes.
solved.
Compared to back then.
Yeah,
Of
of
course,
course.
as
There's always
as time passes, your standards get higher, right?
Sure,
So
sure.
yes.
So the last few years, we have seen a wave of investment in the infra space, primarily because these applications were difficult to onboard to, as well as applications did face challenges in scaling. So from that perspective, the infra layer, do you see most of these challenges being solved, or where are we in terms of the infra being ready to support the next generation applications? Because today we are talking about like for example, Palm.Fund trying and compete with TikTok maybe. And so now the Web3 applications are positioning themselves against the Web2 peers. So for example, Ethify was here
Yes.
today and calling Robinhood and Revolut as the next competitor for them. So you think we have reached from an infra level at a place where all these applications can truly scale?
I think scaling has also, I wouldn't say it's completely solved, but we have a bunch of solutions that work, right? L2 has gone really far, right? So I think scaling in terms of capacity for number of transactions and speed there are options. I wouldn't say it's fully solved, but there are lots of options today. In terms of competitiveness for Web3 apps to Web2 apps, I think I've made this stance earlier, like 2 years earlier, and I still think it's true today, which is that at the end of the day, it's about the use case. If you don't really need the decentralized component of Web3, then the application will not naturally gravitate towards a solution. But in a lot of scenarios, this is valuable. So in scenarios like if you want to have some sort of a personal banking in a place which does not have good financial infrastructure, that is still very valuable to use Web3 solutions. If you're looking at things where monopolies tend to form, I think decentralized solutions do work. One example I can think of is naming systems. ENS is a great example. And there are other competing standards too, but ENS is a great example. So I think in those scenarios, decentralized technologies prevail. And one that has come up a lot over the last is stable coins, right? Traditional financial structure does work, but it jumps through so many hoops and so many hops. So stable coins are a great way to solve that, right? Just simplify the whole experience. So I think that's from a tech layer, right? So Web3 tech is applicable in scenarios where the tech is actually useful.
Right.
As for the companies that can use the tech, Web2 companies are caught up, right? Every single Web2 company out there is familiar with Web3 tech now. Maybe not the cutting edge like ZK, right? But things like stablecoins, they're completely able to execute it and do as well. So I would say if you're a Web2 or if you're a Web3 company trying to compete with Web2, that is no longer the right way to frame it. You are just another company competing with another company.
Right. You talked there's been an explosive growth in the stablecoin space, and we've seen most of these companies like Stripe announcing their own layer one, Circle announcing their own layer one. So do you
And
see
USD as well, yes.
Yeah. Do you see any significant improvement at a technology layer in these new layer ones in order to support the stablecoin use case? Or do you think the existing infra
I
like
think the
Ethereum or
existing
Solana
infrastructure is good
good
enough.
enough?
It's
Okay.
good enough. The innovations do not come through. I don't think the innovations that are impactful will come through improving the blockchain layer. I think they come through integration. So one really cool standard which has been pushed out by Coinbase, but it's open source, is X402, right? I think that's a great use case because if you're an application developer and you've tried to use API keys before, you know that the sign-up flow is basically I go to the website, I create an account, I get an API key, but first I need to put my credit card, right? Put my CVV, I have to check my wallet, and then all that. And then some of them even make you top up, right? And then I don't know if I'll even use the credits at some point. And if I run out, then that's a problem to have to top up again. So that's the flow for a developer. Whereas with X402, you cannot even do microtransactions, right? Directly through the API. So I think it solves a huge use case and a lot of friction for developers. Also unlocks some use cases where the user of the API may not even be a human, right? So AI agents, right, would definitely benefit from things from X402. Yeah.
I guess we are definitely moving the conversation towards to the AI agents, the X402 as well as the 8004 standard. Would love to know a bit more in terms of the 8004 standard. How widely applicable is this from your perspective? Is this primarily for Ethereum, or how chains will adopt, and how will the adoption? Because we have already seen a number of AI agents ecosystems grow. Virtuals is very active in the base in the Solana ecosystem. So how do you see the roadmap going forward with 8004?
So first of all, 8004 is a spec, and it is not Ethereum specific, right? It's a spec that any chain can implement. And the way we want to push it out is that we present a spec, and the point of it is that every single chain has its own singleton, which is basically like a giant yellow pages. This betrays my age, but yellow pages, and every agent would just register there, so it's discoverable. And that singleton would be based on each chain. So if you wanted to register an agent on multiple chains, you can, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. And that aspect of it solves the discoverability problem, right? So if you're a smart contract trying to call an agent, or if you're an agent trying to call another agent, scenario would be a travel planning agent trying to call a ticket booking agent, right? So in such scenarios, that discoverability aspect is solved. And then the other part regarding feedback, right? Because today, even if you have something like an agent card, right, and you advertise your capabilities, people don't know whether you're trustable. They don't know you can actually deliver a task. That's where the feedback aspect comes in. And that is also for each chain. Each chain will have its own registry for this feedback registry. And that creates more problems, though. Even though it's very chain neutral and chain agnostic, it creates problems where there are multiple sources of truth. And the way we want to solve this is to rely on off-chain aggregators to solve it, and we leave it to the community to do it, right? And the way to think about this from kind of like a conceptual point of view is today, if you want to decide which restaurants to go to, you could look up which ones are Michelin starred, but you also could look up Google reviews, right? And the use case is different, right? Michelin star maybe to impress a girlfriend, Google reviews for like a quick meal nearby, right? So that's kind of how we expect this to evolve.
Got it. So as you mentioned, 804 is applicable to multiple chains. With this, we could expect in the near future there will be thousands and even maybe one day millions of agents transacting on chain.
Yes.
What kind of impact will it have on the existing, chains in terms of scalability? How feasible will it be for these agents to transact on chain? Will we reach a point again where we need to think about scalability again, just because the number of agents is just too overwhelming for the existing infra?
I think it's hard to say exactly how much impact it will have, primarily because I think a lot of agent activity is actually off-chain, right? That if you are agent, it's basically a loop calling OpenAI, right? So if you do that, not much of that has to interact on chain.
Yeah.
The only aspects that would interact on chain would be things like payments if you're using X402, potentially giving feedback, maybe calling some other agent and showing proof of doing the job, right, a task. Those are the only aspects. So I think usage could increase, but not to an extent where you would need to new paradigms for scaling.
Got it. So even if you onboard millions of agents, that's not exactly like onboarding millions of users, because a lot of the activity is still off chain and it's just agent discovery, proof of work, payments, and maybe asset swapping across chains. That's what going to be on chain.
I think it's not clear. I wouldn't say it's not going to affect and that we won't hit scaling limits. I just think it's not clear and it's premature to predict. Yeah.
Got it. So with your focus now on X402 as well as 8004 specifically, what use
Primarily
cases?
8004.
Yeah,
yes.
primarily 8004. X402 is a standard which is already out there for a while now. And I think the Google A2A also integrating with X402.
AP2, yes.
AP2, yeah. So are there any particular use cases you're particularly excited about, or in the short to medium term, what are the immediate changes that you kind of see happening?
So there are some use cases that I'm excited about, but I think what's more exciting is see what the community will build. And as we're actually pushing out this builders program for the 8004 spec, which will culminate in a demo day at DevConnect in November. Right. So for interested participants, they can apply through the builders program. It's listed on the 8004.org page, which is the page for 8004. And I think there are lots of different categories. Some that are interesting that I've seen are kind of like agent orchestrators.
Right.
There are also agents that do interesting work like validating the work of other agents. Right. Because you don't want to be manually doing this, right? So I think lots of infra level technical things can be exciting, but I think what's even more exciting is real use case, right? So I would love to see an agent that is actually widely adopted and does something useful. So today, if we look at how agents are used, often the largest use case, at least I've seen, is content generation, right? So if let's say a new topic comes up, the AI agent maybe generate some infographic, right? Generate some content, post it in different places, reply to people's comments, things like that. So I've seen that as a use case, but would love to see more interesting use cases. Yeah.
Right. And when designing the 804 spec, is there a particular focus from the security point of view? Because we have seen examples of how AI agents or AI chatbots can be fooled to do something, figure out some bad use cases, give away the user's fund or something, So
brings up a great aspect that's more technical about 8004, which is the trust model. So in the 8004 spec, we discuss different types of trust models. One of them is just the most basic, which is reputation. So people give good feedback, means you're relatively likely to be doing your job as an AI agent. But there are also other ones. So things like state-based security. So you stake some amount. If you don't do a good job, potentially that stake could be slashed. There could be validators. There's also TEE-based validation. So you could potentially submit a proof of you completing a task, which is done in a TEE. And then someone else could validate that. So there are different trust models, each one being stronger than the last. But also they come with trade-offs, right? So some of them are more expensive to verify. And this is still, I would say, this aspect of like TEEs and stake-based validation is still an open discussion. So lots of people are contributing to it. We're talking to Fala Network, right, and a bunch of other companies that work in this space to figure out exactly how to shape this spec so that we can satisfy everybody's requirements.
Yeah, I can totally imagine that. So from, as you mentioned, it's like a, cost-benefit analysis. If you do a very basic, you wouldn't need security. Then you can have cryptoeconomic security through slashing.
If you're doing something like really, I would say critical, like maybe trading, right? Then you might want something like that. But if you're doing something like image gen, maybe it's not so important. You could just do reputation-based.
Got it. So you talked about cryptoeconomic security through slashing as well as TE. Is cryptographic ZK-based security being also considered, or is it too expensive right now?
It is kind of classified under the TE aspect. There is also some ZK in the TE because it's too expensive to verify on chain, so you can simplify your ZK proof. But I would say, it's all those are like really, really strong guarantees.
Got it. Yeah, and coming to the consensus relationship with Ethereum and focus on this ecosystem, Ethereum Foundation always loves to talk about like 5-year roadmap,
Yes,
and
yes.
in those terms. So, what are the next big challenges that you see being a focus for the foundation as well as for consensus team as a whole?
Right. I cannot comment too much on that, but I can say that Ethereum Foundation has basically started more like an app relations kind of function, right? Previously, they were very focused on the roadmap, building out things, right, and more infra level things. Recently, they've been working more on app level
Okay.
items, and I think that's a great change
Okay.
because I think apps need more support, right?
Got
And
it.
at the end of the day, revenue is king, right? Apps
Right.
need to be bringing users and creating real value. Yeah.
Makes sense. Privacy is one other aspect which is again very important
Yes.
from our point of view, but also could be implemented at an application level, could be implemented at an underlying infra level. Of course, we have seen a lot of the new stablecoin L1s also positioning themselves as privacy enabling apps from
Yes.
day
Yes.
one. So how do you see privacy kind of seeping in? Do you see upcoming big infra layer changes in the existing chains like Ethereum or Solana, or how do you think this will play out?
I mean, with ZK, you can already do a lot of privacy preserving guarantees.
Right.
So I'm not too familiar with exactly how privacy works on a chain level, but I do know that ZK proofs can hide data,
Okay.
right? So that's one aspect you can do it. But I don't think chains will change their infra for this. It's much easier to start L2. That's
Right.
ZK based. So I think that's likely to be where it goes. And at the same time, I don't think applications switch their requirements that quickly. So I think if your application is privacy focused, you will want to be built on a ZK chain, right? It's very rare that a normal application will have these requirements suddenly out of the blue. So I think users will just pick whatever chain suits their needs. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. One final thing that I would love to understand, if given unlimited resources,
I would love
no,
that.
yeah. So what's the most important, problem you would love to solve or take on at this point, given where we are at an infra level?
I have one.
Yeah.
It's something I've been wanting to work on. It's like a pet project that's on a back burner for way too long.
Okay.
Can someone please build a ZK LLM?
ZK
ZK
LLM.
LLM, just the whole LLM in a ZK, right?
Okay.
And it sounds crazy expensive, but one great use case I can think of would be if you're a ZK LLM, right, you could basically prove that this weight generated this result. You could use that as a trustworthy judge. So a
So,
trustworthy
but
judge.
why not use that inside a
TE.
TE?
TE is also trustworthy, but there is a trust assumption which has to rely on the creator of the TE, right? And the validator TE, so like Intel for Intel SGX.
Is it fair to assume you pointed this out because I said unlimited resources? Because it
Yes,
does sound
exactly.
like
Unlimited resources. I would
Yeah.
love to get people to work on
Got
this.
it, yeah.
I think it's exciting because the scenario and the use case for this would be if let's say we have something low value, some real legal contract that's low value, like a maybe rental contract,
Yeah.
right? You could have a dispute, put it on chain with hidden arguments, right? Like how you do to a real lawyer, and that arbitrator, the LLM, can just decide for you,
Okay.
and then just pay out payments. And this would solve use cases where contract values are too low to hire a lawyer, right? Lots of interesting use cases, but I'd love to talk more about this. Yeah, if I unlimited resources, that's what I would love to do.
So if anyone has unlimited resources,
Please,
Leonard
work on this.
Leonard
Yeah.
has a project he would like to fund. But yeah, thank you so much for your time, Leonard.
Thank you,
Really
Raghav.
appreciate you taking the time today and walking through us all the details. Yeah, pleasure having you.
Thank you.